Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. In this video I'm going to be talking about a subject which has been on my mind recently, a subject which I think is a little bit confusing, and I wanted to try and talk it through with you, and that is, how does the judicious application of heat by the producers affect the quality and character of tea in your cup? And I'm specifically talking about green tea today, but this discussion can go much further and cover all tea types. The reason why I'm particularly focused on green tea is, well, first of all, we've just had a restock of a load of 2021 green tea. So we've got our 2021 Longjing, we've got 2021 Bilochen, 2021 Anji Baicha, we've got a new Sencha tea here, an Ashikubo Sencha. We've also got Youngushu 2021 back in stock. I know it's not a green tea, but you'll understand in a bit why I'm including this tea in our discussion. But as I said, this can apply to all tea types. However, I do think that you can pick up the subtleties of different applications of heat much easier when you are talking about green tea. So let's talk about the different factors which the producer has to play with. And excuse the fly that's buzzing around my head. I've been trying for the past 10 minutes to get it to leave the studio, but it's just not having it. So I'm just gonna roll with it. Apologies for the little buzzing noise. Clearly the fly wants a bit of tea. So the factors that the producer has to play with. First of all, how the heat is applied. We're going to talk about the different methods. The temperature, obviously, what temperature is set in the application of heat. The duration, how long the tea leaf is heated for, and the number of successive times that the tea leaf is heated. So those are the four different factors that the producer has to play with and make decisions about when they're producing your tea. And a lot of the decision making is going to revolve around what is the purpose of applying the heat. And so there are 5 broad purposes for applying heat to the tea leaves. The first is to deactivate the enzyme in the leaf that catalyzes oxidation, often called the kill-green process, the de-enzyming process. In China, it's called the Shaqing process. This process of applying heat to denature the enzymes, which therefore keeps the leaf fixed in that state of oxidation, or at least the oxidation rate is going to be slowed down to a relative crawl. The second purpose is to reduce moisture, of course. To dry the tea, we want to bring the tea leaf down to a dry state in order for it to be packaged, transported, and then purchased by you and stored in your cupboards. The third purpose is to actually change the flavor, to add flavor. So adding roasted notes, nutty notes, adding warmth, in essence, to the tea. The fourth is similar to the third, but it is slightly different, and that is to deepen the flavor. So it's not just about changing it, it's about deepening it and fixing it. Often this is used in oolong production to fix the aromatics, go through one extra roast just to fix it for long-term storage. And the fifth and final general purpose for applying heat to tea is to change the shape. So, you know, if you apply heat during the shaping phase of a tea leaf, it will sort of hold and fix that shape more. Often the shaping and the heating happens at the same time, and another reason for that is that shaping the leaf might be sort of removing some of the membrane of the leaf, and therefore the heat which is being applied can be applied to more of the body of the leaf, because you're sort of basically shaping it or flattening it so that more of the leaf is in contact with the heat. So those are the 5 main purposes for applying heat to the tea leaves. And I think it's useful to compare this with cooking, because cooking oftentimes relates to the application of heat. And you have those same sort of 5 purposes: to cook the leaf, so basically turning it from raw to cooked, to sometimes dry the leaf, so to reduce the moisture content of the food, and that intensifies the flavors, to add nutty notes, caramelized notes, to add and change the flavors, to deepen and fix the flavors so that, once you've cooked a dish, oftentimes it won't change flavor as much as if it was in a raw state. Finally, you can also use cooking to change the shape. So in the case of baking, it creates the shape of the resulting food. So you can make the comparison because it's pretty much the same thing with cooking, applying heat for those 5 different purposes. And in China, they sort of split it, they simplify it a little bit. They say, okay, there's the shaqing process, which is often called the kill green or stay green process. And then you've got the ganzao process, or the drying process, so bringing it to a dry state. But you've also got the roasting process. So there's sort of 3 general processes which are often talked about in Chinese production: the kill green, the drying, and the roasting. But I think the important thing to talk about here is that these processes are not separate, that they all have, that it's sort of on a spectrum or on a continuum, that oftentimes you have multiple heating processes that are all sort of doing similar things, but with different priorities. So the priority for the shaqing process is obviously to denature the enzyme and bring about some reduction of moisture. The main purpose of the drying process is clearly to dry the leaf, but also, that drying, dehydration can also further slow down oxidation. Also, roasting, of course, is about reducing moisture, but is also about deepening and adding flavors. So all of the different processes, the roasting, the shaqing, and the drying, they all are doing slightly different things. They have different priorities, but they are on a continuum. So when you are talking about Chinese green tea or green tea in general, oftentimes you may hear about the term chowqing, which means sort of stir-fried, pan-fried tea, hongqing, which is baked tea, and you may also hear about zhengqing or steamed tea. So those are the 3 sort of most commonly used methods to apply heat. To either apply it in a wok, essentially pan frying it, or essentially a conduction method where you're putting the leaf against a hot metal to apply the heat. The hongqing is a baking process, so putting the leaves in an oven or putting the leaves over charcoal on a basket. Sometimes you'll see those machines, those spinning sort of tumble dryer machines. And yes, they will all have different characters, but in essence, they're applying heat through convection. So applying hot air to apply the heat to the leaf. And in the case of zhengqing, you're applying steam, and this is not often used in China. Was used in China in sort of, I think, the Tang Dynasty, and then got exported to Japan, and still in Japan, that is the primary method of applying heat, is through steam. So those are the 3 main methods. Now, there are other methods as well. So I have seen in some factories the application of heat through microwave, not something that I'm a big fan of. I don't even have a microwave in my kitchen, but I'm not a big fan of that. You may also see the application of heat through dipping the leaf in boiling water. That's something that I've seen once in my life. You also hear people talk about shaiqing. Shaiqing basically means, heat application from the sun. So putting the leaves under the sun and using the heat of the sun to change the character of the tea. And so let's just sort of break it down. There's pan frying, chowqing, baking, hongqing, steaming, zhengqing. Let's include sun, shaiqing. Those are sort of the main 4 methods of applying heat, and they can all have slightly different formats, okay? And I think that it's important to know these differences and how the green tea or the tea that you are drinking is made, because it's going to add character and change the flavor of the tea. And whilst we talk about terroir and we talk about cultivar and we talk about all of these other aspects which change the character of a tea, fundamentally, I don't think we often talk enough about how heat is applied to the tea. So let's break it down here. I've got three broad categories here: Chowching, pan-fried, so we've got Longjing here and Bilochen. I've got Hokui here, monkey picked tea, monkey king tea. This is Hongqing, so this is a primarily baked tea. And then we've got this Ashikubo Sencha from Japan. This is a steamed tea. So we're going to be doing a taste comparison of these, but I also want to sort of bring in other sort of hybrids here. So this is Luan Guapian. We've got our 2021 stock in as well. Luan Guapian is first started over woks, usually. And it's very important to note that even within one tea type, the application of heat will change. So sometimes traditionally it's done over pans, so it's Chowching, but people have switched it and made it into a Hongqing, primarily Hongqing or baked tea. Often baked tea is less prone to error and can be more consistent. So, you know, it may be traditional for it to be Chowching, but it may have switched to a Hongqing. So in Luan Guapian, this is traditionally starts with Chowching and then is often finished by baking over charcoal. And then it goes through another very specific application of heat, which is over very hot fires, just flash roasting over hot fires for like literally seconds, but over multiple times. So again, different applications of heat is going to change the character of the tea, makes it very, very interesting blend of umami and savory and grassy to very, very sweet and starchy with a sort of heated quality to it, not a smoked quality. And I think that's one of the things that we should highlight is that whilst the application of heat is a fundamental part of production of the tea, what we're not looking for is a smoked aroma, because that often relates, or 99% of the time, that relates to poor processing rather than a choice by the producer. Obviously, you've got your Lapsang Souchongs, which are different. Anji Baicha, we've got Anji Baicha 2021 just come in. This traditionally, again, pan and then sort of by hand, and then goes through a Hongqing baking to drying. Now they use these machines which go back and forth, and it is still technically pan frying because it's in contact with a hot metal surface, but it's continuously moving, and so there's going to be a lot of hot air around there, and so you're sort of getting this combination of Hongqing and Chowching combined. And then, of course, you've got your raw puertes, which starts the first heating process. The initial Shaqing process is via pans, so it's a Chowching process. So it's using hot pans to denature the majority of the enzymes in the leaves. But then it goes through a Shaiqing process, so it goes through a sun drying process, so the application of heat via the sun in order to, again, dehydrate and potentially denature some of the enzymes. But that's what makes raw puer so special in terms of its suitability for aging. Right, so but I want to sort of simplify here, and let's just focus on the main three: Chowching, Hongqing, Shengqing. I've got to choose one here. I've done a video about Longjing 2021, so we're going to focus on Bilochen. So this is a Jiangsu Bilochen, top grade Bilochen. I'm going to be brewing the Hokui in this mug. My favorite way to do grandpa style are these larger mugs. And we've got this Ashikubo Sencha. So we'll quickly sort of scope the new teas at least, and we're going to do a tasting. And the point here with this tasting is to try to assess the main difference that Chowching, Hongqing, and Zhengqing, pan-fried, baked, and steamed, makes to the character of your green tea. Of course, all of the other factors like terroir and cultivar come into play as well. Right, let me just heat up my kettle. In fact, that's pretty good. In fact, it's a bit hot, so I'm just going to leave the lid off that kettle. I should also reinforce that it's not just one time that the heat is applied to leaves for a lot of teas. In fact, most green teas, there are multiple occasions when the heat is applied. Often there's a first initial heating, which is the shaching process to, again, prioritize the de-enzyming of the leaf, but then it can go through at least one other process of baking to dry, either in conveyor belts or in an oven, or sometimes over charcoal heaters, charcoal fired bamboo baskets. All sorts of different methods for drying the tea, which will all change it. In the case of Longjing, they will often chowching, so pan fry, multiple times, so at least 2, 3, sometimes 4 times. Again, all with slightly different purposes. The first time may be to really de-enzyme the leaf. The second time will be to further reduce moisture and create shape. And then the last time to add a little bit of extra depth of flavor. So the application of heat, just like cooking, it really is the same. I mean, you know, one of the skills of a good cook is understanding the transformation, the alchemy that happens when you apply heat, how you apply heat, at what stage in the transformation of the food you apply different levels of heat, from high to gentle to control, the various different factors which bring about how good the end result is going to be. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one at a time. So we're just going to put some hot water at the bottom of these leaves. I'm going to focus more on these 2 new teas because we've already done a video, I'm pretty sure, about monkey picked. Okay, here we go. So this is Bilochen, for those of you who don't know, green coil Bilochen, a much loved green tea from Jiangsu province, and is a perfect example of a chowching tea. And a lot of people find that green coil can be a bit intense, a bit strong, kind of, you know, heavy tasting tea. And so you've got to really, you know, balance with the water temperature to get it to be the perfect brew. But that is a characteristic of chowching teas. Chowching teas tend to be really strong in flavor, strong in aroma. They've gone through the most amount of transformation of or addition of flavor because it's gone through high heat, usually sort of 200 plus degrees, and it's contacting with the metal, and that means that you're going to get a little bit more of a lot more of a toasted aroma. It's going to be reducing the moisture much quicker, which intensifies the flavors. Again, think of it as like cooking. If you pan fried on a high heat some asparagus, that's going to have a very different flavor to a steamed asparagus or an oven baked asparagus. Okay, so the most intense in terms of aroma, and the aromas are just delicious. It's a combination of savory and sweet. I'm getting those spinachy, baked spinach pies, spanakopita. I'm also getting though malts and chocolates like Maltesers. Maltesers. Really lovely, just a light chocolate note and a lot of malt. This great combination, but in the warm territory. Right, let's compare that to Ashikubo Sencha. So Ashikubo Sencha is a sencha tea from Ashikubo, a very, very famous province or area of Shizuoka prefecture in Japan. Shizuoka is very well known for green tea production. Ashikubo is supposedly the first area, the sort of birthplace of Shizuoka green tea production. And Ashikubo has really incredible topography. It has a river running through it and some steep hillsides, much more steep than most Japanese tea producing areas. And that means it gets less sun, which means that you are getting a generally more shaded green tea taste in in teas produced in Ashikubo. Oftentimes a large temperature between day and night, and so you get morning mist rolling in, which again acts as shade. So it mellows out the aromatics of the tea. But certainly if you compare the chowching and the zhengqing, steamed versus pan fried, a lot more warm, a lot more nutty, a lot more toasted. This one here, it has warmth, but the warmth is more in sort of porridge oats, creaminess, but then you also get that fresh cut spinach, like torn spinach leaves, and some fruity notes as well, like wild strawberries. So fresher, more verdant, warmer and nuttier. I'm going to just heat up this hokwe as well and put the lid on. Again, compare it to cooking, okay? How does steamed asparagus taste different or have a different character to pan-fried, stir-fried asparagus compared to baked? Meadowy, light, spring-like, soft, less verdant than the steamed, less nutty and toasted than the chowching, in a way more natural, if that's the sort of, I'm not sure if that's the best way to describe it, but a little bit more like I am in the fields now, okay? Okay, so let's give these a quick rinse. I'm not going to rinse the hokwe. I am just going to pour in the water and let that start brewing. Okay, so let's give these a smell. Yeah, I'm getting nuttiness, but it's not as much of a roasted bean note as the Longjing, but it's close. So I'm getting starchiness, beans, bolotti beans. I'm getting that asparagus, spinach pie, warmth. So it's, yes, I'm picking up the greenness of it, but it's cooked. It's warm, it's nutty, it's rounded. Brighter. Again, still creamy and warm. I would never pick a sencha which is just all about cut grass. No, it's got to have that warmth, and it certainly does. It's still in that sort of porridgey note, but the wild strawberries are coming out now. The fruits are coming out, and it's just got yeah, like the difference between pan-fried asparagus and steamed asparagus. That's the best way to describe it. Let me pour these away. I'm not going to smell the wet leaf of the hokwe. Let's brew these up. Now, of course, you can brew the sencha according to the sencha instructions, and I'm doing this a little bit roughly, just so that for the sake of time and to get a comparison, direct comparison to teas with pretty much the same brewing style. Now, I'm not going to brew these for long at all. You can already see the vibrant color of this sencha, so you can see a distinct color difference as well. Much lighter, much in the spectrums of sort of paler yellow colors compared with a much more verdant color with the sencha. And of course, I am not suggesting that all of these differences are related to how the heat was applied differently, but it is a factor, and a factor which is not often talked about, I think. Let's put these to the side. Beautiful color on both of them. Now, with a Chinese green tea, you're looking for clarity. You're looking for lightness. With a Zhengqing steamed tea, you're looking for vibrancy. So there's a difference in what you're looking for in terms of the assessment of the liquor. Right, let's give this a taste. Cheers, everybody. Green Coil 2021. Oh, so if you've ever had a green coil bilochen and you found that it's too intense, too strong, obviously you need to play with your brewing parameters. It is a sensitive tea. I brewed this at 80 degrees Celsius. If it is, even when you control the brewing too strong, that's often a telltale sign that it's not a particularly high quality green core. So I would recommend that you go out and find yourself a really high quality one. And there's lots of different quality markers. I've done a video about Bilocha and I'll put it in the description below. You want strength, you want intensity in the mouth, but you can see you also want clarity, cleanliness, a delicateness. So the skill of a high quality Chongqing green tea is that the liquor looks remarkably clear. The taste has clarity and brightness whilst packing a punch with all of these warm undertones. So I'm getting like buttered spinach, cooked down spinach. I'm getting, oh, I was going to drink from there. Force of habit, I do that at home. I'm getting those broad beans, those bolotti beans. I'm getting all of that. I'm getting a little touch of umami, but I'm also getting a lovely, bright, zingy elderflower note as well. Okay, here's the Ashikubo, a tea which just surprised me, and the reason why I selected it this year, because this is 100% Yabukita variety. Now, I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to Japanese cultivars, and I'm always sort of looking at more of the specialist cultivars. Yabukita is the most common cultivar, and I tend to stay away from 100% Yabukita variety teas. I don't mind it in blends, but I tend to sort of stay away from 100% Yabukita. But, you know, I blind tasted this, didn't know what it was, fell in love with it. Clearly, the topography, the landscape of Ashikubo tempers, controls the Yabukita, and it just brings a remarkable balance to this tea. So, there is a lot of brightness, as you'd expect from a Yabukita. There's a touch of bitterness, but that bitterness is just a lovely, alluring, sort of teasing bitterness. It's really not in your face, it's just there, mixed with all of this sort of lemon verbena, cucumber, but like a steamed cucumber. So it's just a little bit less bright, a little bit of a yeah, like a cooked cucumber, or just the flesh of the cucumber, not the skin of the cucumber. So it's got all that greenness in there, but it also has that creamy, porridgey note and a fair amount of umami. And this comes from that shading, that sort of natural shading through not getting a lot of sunlight because of the steeper aspects of the hillsides of Ashikubo. So, comparison of Chongqing steamed and Chongqing stir-fried. Obviously taking into account the fact that there's all these other factors like the cultivar and the terroir and, you know, the culture of tea behind it, but starchier, warmer, nuttier. Yeah, I wouldn't say more intense because obviously this is an intense flavor, but has a more punchy aromatic to it. Whereas this one is much more in the mouth. It's much more about this sort of smooth, umami, creamy, moving to those cucumbery and yeah, lemony, not just lemon verbena, but also a very lemony finish. And this has had some time. So this is how I like to do grandpa style. I know people say you should leave the leaves in the water. I don't really like picking leaves out of my teeth, so I like to do it this way. And then, you know, as the water, or as I drink, I just put it back in and refill. Softer. The softest of the bunch, the most mellow of the bunch, and the sweetest of the bunch. So, a bit of petrichor, nashi pears. So it's got a little bit more of a sort of soft minerality to it. So, just to sort of wrap things up, and you can't wrap this up because every tea is going to be different, and there are so many different factors at play. You can't make direct comparisons. But I do think that the discussion of the application of heat is not a discussion which takes place enough, and oftentimes it's done a bit lazily. Oh, that's pan-fried, oh, that's baked. And a lot of times, as you've seen here, it's a combination of the two. But if you are going to sort of make some broad strokes, Chowching is going to have the most impactful aroma, the warmest character to it. Zhengqing is going to be the greener, the fresher, but still it's going to have warmth if it's been produced properly and is not just sort of done shoddily. It's going to have warmth and creaminess, but it's in that lighter, fresher, more verdant note. And the Hongqing, the baked tea, tends to be the most mellow, soft, and sweet tea type. Don't forget also that the temperatures are going to be different. This is going to be, they're probably going to be around the same temperature. 200 degrees is the first application of heat. But the difference is that that's touching the metal. This one is relying on circulation of air mostly. This one here, because it's steamed, steam is going to be around 100 degrees, so it's going to be a lot lower temperature as well, and that's going to impact, you know, the difference that it makes to the character as well. Again, think of it like cooking. If you were steaming asparagus versus pan frying versus baking. Anyway, I think this is just the beginning of a discussion. I'm happy to hear your thoughts on the different applications of heat and what you think makes the tea of your preference. And I do think that producers need to be experimenting with trying out different applications of heat, because I think that this is going to, you know, move things forwards, and you're going to have evolution in tea through different applications and maybe differences in successive applications of heat to the same leaves. This has just been on my mind. I thought I'd throw out a video to see what you guys think out there, so do let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. That's it, tea heads. Check out our other videos, taste our teas wherever you are in the world by browsing mayleaf.com, and come visit us if you're ever in London. Other than that, I'm Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags, keep drinking the good stuff, and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.